It was a warm afternoon in the heart of Jamina, one of Africa's vibrant cities, where life moved with a rhythm of its own. The streets buzzed with sounds of motorcycle engines, women bargaining loudly in the markets, children chasing each other in the distance, and vendors shouting out their prices. Colorful fabrics hung from every window and fruit stalls overflowed with ripe mangoes and bananas. Walking confidently down a busy street were two young women, best friends, inseparable since childhood. Aisha, 20 years old, walked with a gentle yet dignified air. She was tall, slim, with smooth light caramel skin, a narrow face, high cheekbones, and long straight jet black hair that fell just past her shoulders. Her deep almond-shaped brown eyes observed the world with kindness and curiosity. She wore a crisp white modern shirt, tucked into high-waisted blue jeans, and sleek white sneakers. A small beige handbag hung over her shoulder. Beside her was her friend Fatim, 21 years old, just slightly taller, with the same light caramel complexion, but rounder features. She had curly light brown hair, styled in a loose bun, and sharp hazel eyes with a touch of eyeliner. She wore a pink blouse with puffed sleeves, tight-ripped jeans, and beige flat shoes. Her movements were fast and expressive, always talking, always moving, her voice full of life. As they strolled through the dusty road lined with street vendors, Fatim chatted about a party she wanted them to attend that weekend. Aisha smiled and nodded, but her attention drifted to the side of the street. Amidst the flowing rhythm of the city, something disrupted her peace. Sitting slouched on a piece of cardboard, in the shade of a worn-out kiosk, was a man. At first glance, he looked like a madman, forgotten, ignored by everyone. But something about him stopped Aisha in her tracks. It was Dada, a 30-year-old man disguised as a beggar. Though very handsome underneath, his appearance was deliberately awful. His skin was dark brown, but now covered in layers of dust. His face was partially hidden by an uncombed, dirty, tangled afro, his cheeks covered in a patchy beard. He wore a torn and heavily stained oversized green shirt, and faded brown trousers with holes at the knees. His bare feet were cracked and covered in grime, and his eyes, though tired and half-lidded, had a certain hidden brightness in them, as if watching the world with silent intelligence. He sat still, his thin arms resting on his knees, his body weak from hunger. A small empty plastic bowl sat in front of him, untouched all morning. Aisha stopped. She couldn't look away. Fatim, noticing her slowing down, pulled at her arm. "Come on, Aisha. Don't waste your time. These guys are everywhere. He probably earns more than us pretending to be like this," she said dismissively, wrinkling her nose. But Aisha didn't move. There was something deep in her heart that couldn't ignore suffering, even when the world chose to look away. "I just want to give him something," she said softly, reaching into her bag. Her fingers found a wrapped meat pie and a bottle of clean water. As she stepped forward, Fatim scoffed, rolling her eyes and folding her arms. The noise of the city continued as if nothing unusual was happening. People walked past. No one else stopped. Dada slowly lifted his head. For the first time, his eyes met hers, and in that instant, though no words were exchanged, something unspoken passed between them. A spark. A recognition. A mystery yet to unfold. The following day, the sun was higher in the sky, blazing above the rooftops of Jamina as the streets pulsed with life once again. Aisha walked alone this time, her almond-shaped brown eyes reflecting a quiet determination. She wore a light blue blouse, tucked into a pair of neat black jeans, and her feet were in simple white sandals. Slung over her shoulder was a small plastic bag containing bread and fruit. As she neared the corner where she had seen the beggar yesterday, her heart beat a little faster. She didn't know why she cared so much, but something inside her wanted to help again. Maybe it was his eyes. Maybe it was the way he looked at her as if seeing beyond what she was offering. Or maybe it was something deeper, something spiritual. She arrived. Dada, the man disguised as a beggar, sat in the same spot. With his dark brown skin, very handsome face hidden under a filthy, tangled afro and rough patchy beard, he looked even weaker today. His oversized green shirt was still torn and stained, and his faded brown trousers hung loosely on his thin frame. His bare feet, cracked and dirty, were stretched out on the hot pavement. Flies buzzed around him, and his bowl was still empty. Aisha walked up without hesitation. "Good afternoon," she said gently, crouching in front of him. Dada lifted his head, slower than yesterday. His tired eyes, full of silent wisdom and mystery, met hers again. She handed him the food and a bottle of water. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he nodded slowly. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice hoarse but deep. She smiled warmly and sat beside him on the edge of the sidewalk, ignoring the stares of passers-by. The market women across the street muttered in surprise. A well-dressed young lady, sitting next to a mad-looking beggar? Across the road, someone watched them. Fatim stood by a fruit stand. She wore a tight yellow top, blue skinny jeans, and black sandals, her arms crossed tightly. She had seen everything. Anger flared inside her. She crossed the road with swift, confident steps, her earrings jingling with every movement. As she approached, her face twisted with disapproval. "Aisha," she snapped, "are you serious? You're sitting on the ground like this? With him?" Aisha stood calmly, brushing the dust from her jeans. "Yes, I am. He's hungry. And human." Fatim laughed mockingly, looking down at Dada, who remained silent. "Look at him," she said loudly, gesturing with contempt. "He's disgusting. He probably smells like sewage. Why are you wasting your time and food on someone who can't even wash?" She turned to Dada, stepping closer, her hazel eyes flashing with disdain. "Get up and go back somewhere else. You're lucky she's naive. But I see through you. You're a lazy, filthy man who probably made bad choices. Don't think you can use her kindness to fool anyone." Still, Dada said nothing. His eyes locked on hers with an eerie calm, unfazed by her insults. His silence made her even more irritated. Aisha stepped between them. "That's enough, Fatim." But Fatim was just getting started. She pointed a finger at Dada, her voice rising. "Mark my words, if I see you near her again, I'll call the police. We don't need people like you ruining this city." With a sharp turn of her heel, she stormed off, leaving the air tense and heavy. Aisha turned back to Dada, apologetically. "I'm sorry for her words," she said quietly. Dada shook his head gently, a small smile breaking through his rough exterior. "Kindness like yours is rare," he replied. "Don't let anyone kill it." And with that, a second thread was tied between their souls, one of understanding, resilience, and quiet strength. The days passed, and each afternoon, Aisha returned to that same corner of the city. The city of Jamina, with its dusty streets and chaotic energy, became a backdrop to something quiet and profound, a connection growing in silence. Every visit, Aisha brought food or water in a plastic bag. Her outfits changed, always simple and modern. Today, she wore a white fitted shirt, light denim jeans, and black sneakers. But what never changed was her kindness. She never asked for anything. She never expected thanks. And Dada accepted her offerings with quiet gratitude. He still looked like a beggar, a madman, even, but his eyes had begun to change. They no longer held only fatigue. Now, they held questions. Wonder. A quiet admiration. Today, as she handed him a sandwich and sat beside him, Dada surprised her. "Why do you do this?" he asked, his voice deeper and clearer than before. Aisha blinked, surprised by the sudden question. Then she looked up at the sky, thinking. "Because I know what it's like to be hungry," she said softly. "I was raised by my grandmother. We often had to choose between eating and paying rent." Dada watched her, his sharp mind quietly taking in her words, her posture, her sincerity. "You don't look like someone who suffered," he said. "I don't look like a lot of things," she answered with a quiet smile. Across the road, a familiar figure stood again. Fatim stood next to a taxi, watching with increasing irritation. Her lips were tight. She couldn't believe Aisha was still doing this. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, coloring the sky in orange and purple, Fatim confronted Aisha again, this time in their shared apartment courtyard. The crickets had just begun to sing. "Why are you so obsessed with that beggar?" Fatim demanded, arms crossed, her tone laced with sarcasm. Aisha calmly closed the book she was reading. "I'm not obsessed. I'm helping. He could be a drug addict. A liar. You don't know him." "But I know how it feels to be invisible," Aisha replied. "I won't make someone feel that way if I can help it." Fatim scoffed. "You think kindness will make him fall in love with you? He's trash. The streets are full of people like him, dirty, useless, forgotten." Aisha stood up slowly. "Maybe they're forgotten because everyone thinks like you." That night, in the darkness of his hidden apartment, Dada took off his disguise. He washed the dirt from his face, revealing his smooth skin, sharp jawline, and piercing gaze. His hair was still wild, but in the light of his luxurious but hidden home, he looked like the man he truly was, a billionaire. But his mind was not on wealth. It was on Aisha, the girl who saw a man in rags and treated him like royalty. It was a humid Thursday afternoon. The streets of Jamina bustled with honking cars, wandering vendors, and the rhythmic beats of distant music. the scent of roasted peanuts mixed with dust in the air. Amid all the chaos, Aisha strolled with a light lunch pack wrapped in brown paper. She wore a blue button-up shirt, black high-waisted trousers, and white sneakers. Her pace was eager but calm. She was heading, as always, to the street corner where Data dressed still in the rags of a broken soul, his filthy, tangled afro, patchy beard, tattered green shirt, and stained brown trousers, seated against a dusty wall with his bare feet cracked and bruised. She arrived with a warm smile and sat beside him, handing over the lunch. "You've become the best part of my days," she said softly. Data looked at her, saying nothing for a moment. Then, he asked, "What if I wasn't poor? Would you still care?" Aisha chuckled. "You ask strange questions for someone who hasn't had lunch yet." He smiled faintly, accepting the food. Just across the street, Fatim walked by with a small shopping bag. She wore a tight yellow top, white-fitted jeans, and beige sandals. The moment she noticed Aisha again with Data, something inside her snapped. She marched across the street, furious. "You again? Haven't you had enough of this madness, Aisha?" Aisha stood up slowly, her face calm but firm. "I'm not doing anything wrong." "He's a parasite," Fatim yelled. "Look at him, he probably doesn't even remember what soap is." Data, still seated, looked up at her, expression unreadable. Then came the worst part. Fatim, with a disgusted face, turned toward Data. She pulled a coin from her purse and flung it at him. "Here. Maybe buy some decency next time." The coin bounced off his chest and clattered onto the concrete. Aisha gasped. Her face flushed with shock and anger. "You had no right," she shouted. "His filth, Aisha. He doesn't deserve your kindness." But Aisha turned to Data, knelt beside him, and gently placed her hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Data didn't move. But in his heart, something broke and something healed at the same time. That night, in his private suite atop one of Jamina's wealthiest buildings, Data, now in a clean black shirt, well-groomed, clean-shaven with neat afro hair, stared out over the city skyline. The people below had no idea who he truly was. But Aisha had seen the man in the shadows and offered light. He picked up his phone and made a call. "Tomorrow," he said. "Bring the car. I'll show her who I really am." The morning sun rose gently over Jamina, painting the sky in soft golden hues. The day seemed ordinary, but for Aisha, something felt different. She slipped into her usual outfit, a blue button-up shirt, black high-waisted trousers, and white sneakers. As she tied her hair neatly, her heart beat with quiet hope. She packed another lunch in her bag, determined to check on Data, the man who had stolen her thoughts. She arrived at the usual corner, but he wasn't there. The dusty wall where he sat was empty. The small piece of cloth he used as a mat was gone. She blinked. Looked around. No sign of the man with dark brown skin, dirty tangled afro, patchy beard, tattered green shirt, and stained brown trousers. The man who looked like a madman but spoke with the heart of a king. Confused and slightly worried, Aisha sat on the sidewalk, clutching the lunch bag, her eyes scanning the street. Suddenly, the sound of tires slowly crunching gravel caught her attention. A sleek black Range Rover, freshly waxed, rolled toward her and stopped just a few feet away. The driver's door opened. Out stepped a man she didn't recognize at first. It was Data, transformed. He was now clean and radiant. Data, now clean-shaven, with a neatly trimmed afro, wearing an elegant white shirt, tailored navy blue trousers, and polished leather shoes. He looked like he belonged in a boardroom or a five-star hotel, not on a sidewalk. "Aisha," he said softly, his deep voice no longer raspy. She stood up slowly, blinking in disbelief. I don't understand," she whispered. "I didn't lie to you. I only hid my truth, because I needed to see yours." Her hands trembled slightly. "What do you mean?" He took a few steps forward and pulled out a small photograph from his wallet. It was a picture of Data, much younger, with his parents, standing in front of the massive estate that now belonged to him. "My parents died in an accident when I was 23. They left me everything. But I saw how money changed people. So I left it all, for a while. I needed to know if real kindness still existed in the world." "And you found it?" she asked, voice shaking. "I found you," he replied. Before she could speak again, another figure approached, Fatim. She had followed the luxury car out of curiosity. When she saw Data now, her jaw dropped. You're?" she stammered. He turned to her calmly. "Yes. I am the same man you insulted. But I forgive you." Fatim looked down in shame, unable to meet his eyes. Then Data turned back to Aisha. Would you join me for lunch today? Not in the street, but somewhere you deserve. Aisha, still overwhelmed, smiled through the tears forming in her eyes. Yes, she said softly. They entered the car together as the city watched in silence. Sometimes, the purest hearts are rewarded in the most unexpected ways. The sun began to set over the vibrant city of Jamina, casting warm orange and pink tones across the skyline. The streets buzzed softly, but high above in the calm of a rooftop garden, Aisha sat at a dinner table draped in white linen, facing a view she never imagined she would one day witness. Aisha wore a simple ivory dress that flowed gently around her frame. Her face glowed under the fading sunlight, enhanced by soft makeup and golden earrings shaped like tiny stars. Seated across from her was Data, now fully transformed, clean-shaven, with a neatly trimmed afro, wearing a royal blue blazer over a crisp white shirt, cream-colored trousers, and brown loafers. He looked more at ease than ever, but his gaze remained fixed on Aisha, filled with admiration and gratitude. Between them, a table held elegantly plated meals and 2 glasses of fresh mango juice. The rooftop belonged to Data. It was part of the luxury penthouse he owned, one he hadn't stepped into for almost 2 years until now. And he had chosen this exact place for one reason. To be honest, Data said with a smile, I didn't plan for any of this. Aisha chuckled softly. Neither did I. They both looked out at the view, watching the sun lower itself beneath the horizon. I wanted to see if a heart as kind as yours still existed, he continued. You gave food not just from your hand, but from your soul. When others judged me for my smell, for my clothes, you saw past it. Aisha blushed slightly, brushing her hair behind her ear. I only did what anyone should do, she said. No, Aisha, he replied gently. You did what most people wouldn't. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, carefully folded letter. This, he said, was written by my mother. She gave it to me the day before she died. In it, she said, when you find someone who sees you before they see your wealth, hold on to them. Because true love doesn't wear a mask. He slid the letter toward her, and Aisha read the faded ink through glassy eyes. Silence fell between them for a few seconds before Data stood. He stepped around the table, then slowly bent down on one knee. From his blazer pocket, he took out a small box. Inside was a modest gold ring, nothing flashy, just timeless elegance. Aisha, you've already proven your heart. I don't expect an answer today, but I want you to know I want a future with you. Not because of what I own, but because of who you are. Aisha's hands covered her mouth in disbelief. Her eyes filled with emotion. Then, slowly, she nodded. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Data. He slid the ring gently onto her finger, and the two embraced as the sky darkened with stars beginning to twinkle. Below, the city continued on, unaware that in one quiet garden above the noise, 2 souls had just found home in each other. True love is not found in appearances, wealth, or material comfort. It reveals itself in the smallest gestures, in compassion shown when no one is watching. Aisha did not fall for Data's riches. She embraced his soul when he had nothing. Data, clean-shaven, neatly trimmed afro, wearing humble peasant clothes before revealing his identity, learned that kindness attracts what wealth cannot buy, sincerity. Life will often test people before rewarding them. Would you be like Aisha, able to love with your heart instead of your eyes? If this story touched you, like the video, subscribe, and share it to inspire others. And remember, sometimes, the most beautiful souls wear the simplest clothes.